Welcome everybody, it's great to have you back. I am here with the results from the last bunch of eBay sales we had, and there are some interesting things that happened that I want to share with you. Some really good surprises and a few not so good ones. So let's talk about all of it because we do these listings. Yes, it's to bring merchandise to our viewers and our customers and the big eBay world out there that goes way beyond all of us. But it also is so that we learn some things along the way. We learn a little bit about pricing, what things are selling for at a given moment, things that worked in our listings, things that maybe didn't work in our listings, and like I said, in this case, a couple of other lessons too. So let's get on with it because we've got lots to share. I guess we'll start with the bad news first, because there was a little bit. Out of 20 items, 19 of them sold, and the one that did not was this guy. And the reason that this guy didn't sell is because he's a great little Robert K. carving out of a vertebrae and walrus tusk and all sorts of great stuff. Well, I specified all those things in the description, but eBay apparently now wants you to put those things in the title. And because it wasn't in the title, they said you were welcome to relist this item, but you have to describe in the title what sort of material this is. And I think that's because they have so many people who are trying to pass off ivory as bone because it's not legal to sell ivory in a lot of places. So I get what eBay's issue is. This is a Robert K. It is signed right here. It's a great little piece. It should sell for several $100s. We had it on reserve and it was climbing towards that reserve when the listing was canceled. So we're going to relist this. I think we're going to give it a month or two off. I'll take it to shows and see if we can sell it directly. And if it doesn't sell, we'll relist it in the fall when there's more people in front of the computer and more eyes to look at it. And we'll just chalk it up to that's what we were supposed to do. So let's get on to the things that did sell. So we're going to start with the great news that turned to sad news first. This is this wonderful pair of early, this is about a century after Meissen started, the Putti Angel Cherub candlesticks. And they went to a viewer and she was so excited because she said, I never imagined I might be able to get these when you first showed them. I was excited. I got so nervous about the packing job that at the last minute I decided that I needed to put cardboard between the two items to give them a little bit of extra rigidity. And apparently when I did it, from the way it was described to me how it came, I think I pushed some of the bubble wrap off of one of the pieces, and because of that, and because it was under the flap, I didn't see it. I should have packed it in more so that there wouldn't have been any airspace, and I failed. And because I failed, one of the feet got broken and is now going to have to be restored. And I feel so badly for the customer and so badly that I did not do a better job, because I certainly had in mind to get these to her safely. So that was a bad one. They sold for $845. They are a great set. I will have them restored. If she wants them as restored, then she will get them for a cheaper price if she still is interested. And if she does not, well, then we'll sell them restored and take our loss and move on. They should sell typically somewhere in the $1,000 to $1,200 range. I was pleased that in August, a not so busy time, that we got close to that amount. $845 on 51 bids. I mean, it was a really, really good auction, and I was very happy to sell them for that price. I did have someone email me and say, please don't sell them so cheap. Oh, you need to take that listing down because these used to sell for thousands of dollars. Yes, used to. That is the important point. Now they seem to sell for about $1,000 to $1,200. 30 years ago, they sold for about $1,000 to $1,200, and the porcelain market had a bump up and a bump down. And now we're seeing things selling, but they really haven't budged in price for a long time. Everything else seems like it got through, thank goodness. Including this basket, which is Alta Glass. This is from Medicine Hat, Alberta. There's not much stuff that was made there. There was a pottery company or two there, and there was this glass company. It was started by a Czech emigre in the 1950s, and it definitely has that spatter glass look of Czech that I really like, and it's a hot orange modernist color, and so a bunch of folks bid on it. I was very pleased that it went for $51 because it's a great piece, but it's kind of obscure, and with things that are obscure, they can either go really high because, wow, you never see this, or they can be sort of overlooked because people don't even know to look for them, And I think Alta Glass falls into the second category. So it is out there, especially if you're in Canada or in the Western United States, there's a chance you'll find pieces, and I would pick it up because I think it's a sleeper. Protonics. You've noticed the past few months, if you've been following this, that I have been putting drug rep swag on the computer about every sale. I've listed one item. I bought another item yesterday. It may be on the next month's sale. And the reason I'm doing it is because we are definitely seeing there's starting to be interest, and the market is trying to find what are the unusual pieces, what are the things that are going to be noteworthy. And one of the reasons the Protonics monsters are noteworthy is because they were so successful as an advertising campaign that between that and all of these things like this nightlife that were given to doctors to give to patients, it was the quickest rise to $1 billion in sales of any drug that had ever come out on the market before. And it was partly because these red monsters that were your acid reflux would turn to a nice quiet blue if you took Protonics. Very effective advertising, a little too effective. Between that and a lot of other overprescription of drugs, the FDA and other people involved realized that, hey, maybe we are pushing this too hard on the doctors, and maybe they're pushing too hard on the ultimate customer. And certainly with some of the problems we're having now with drug abuse and overprescription of opiates, that has become a real issue. And so that's why you're not seeing drug rep swag anymore, and that's why it's collectible. So I'm going to keep looking for it. This piece, the Jack B. Nimble, I was so pleased. This went to a viewer in Minnesota. It came from my mother's estate, so I was really glad it went to a good home. You can see the similarity to Snap, Crackle, and Pop because this is by Vernon Grant. We'll show his signature down at the bottom. And there he is in the corner. Nice Art Deco signature. He was a commercial artist primarily. He worked for other companies besides Kellogg's, but he came up with the Snap, Crackle, and Pop figures, and they were so popular that it allowed him to do a series of 25 of these nursery rhyme prints that you see from time to time. And that's where this one came from. So it's original from the 30s. Now, I mentioned in the video that whoever got this would probably be wise to put acid-free mount on the back. And I do believe that that's what should be done. And so I think that that plus the shipping on a print is a little high. So it went for $22.50. But if you look at it from the customer's perspective, she actually paid close to $40. And that's what these typically sell for in retail stores. So remember, when you're selling online, you are giving part of your profit to the post office because the stuff has to get there. But from the standpoint of the buyer, they're paying the full amount. And so that's what the item really is worth as a retail value. The Royal Deck ceramic seal went for $31 plus shipping, and I was happy to sell this piece. I thought he was really cute. I bought him not understanding that he was a 1980s piece rather than a 1940s or 50s piece. And I learned a little bit about it because it had the Royal Deck's Czechoslovakia mark in ink, but it did not have the triangle mark. And that was probably because the triangle marks at a certain point were not necessarily just the pink porcelain embedded. They also did foil label in the 1980s, and I believe that the foil label was probably on this and came off. So I learned a little bit about identifying age on Royal Decks by doing this listing, and he did sell to a good home, and I did make a little money on him, so everyone was happy in the end. Black Rose Crest was very, very hard for Fenton to control because the black and the red that they use to get that peach blow that they mix with the milk glass that gives it that pinky color, they cool down at very, very different rates. And so they have to be very careful about how they apply them next to each other because just the presence of them cooling at different rates can cause cracking between the two layers. And so because of that, they just never could really control where the color went. So this one has a dark swirl that goes to light. It's actually a rather unusual piece, even though you might consider it a factory second. And so it went for $82 plus $8.50 shipping. I knew it was an odd and interesting piece when I found it, and I'm glad that it made it to its collector. The Funko piece, so we all think of Funko Pops now, but they were actually originally the Wacky Wobbler bobbleheads, and Betty Boop was one of the first. Betty Boop has been discontinued for a while, and Betty Boop is very popular. And because there's not real wealth of 1930s Betty Boop things, people buy a lot of the 1980s because that's really when a lot of things with her were made. And at that point, they were showing her as being a little bit naughty. So this is Betty Boop, the Little Devil, and she went for $52 because you just don't see her very much anymore. So now I've been saying a lot lately, are Funko Pops going to hold up, or is it going to be the next Beanie Baby fad? And my guess is look for really short editions that are discontinued, and that's where your value might be in the long run on these, like we're seeing on the Wacky Wobblers, which came out, gosh, 26 years ago. Orphilla, the company out of Philadelphia, made this piece, and she's so cute. Or they had it made for them, I should say. They had nothing. They made nothing themselves. They imported everything from Germany and Czechoslovakia. This is a little German flapper skier girl. You never see these. None had sold on eBay. I put her out and just thought, we're just going to find out what the market is in a pure unadulterated auction where we don't do anything. And the market told us that on 4bid she would sell for $32 plus shipping. And that tells me that in a retail store, I would expect to see her maybe $35 to $40. And that is about what I thought before we did this. So we learned a little from that experiment. She's such a cute piece, and I'm glad that she went to a place that she should. One of the things that's really great about doing these eBay sales as experiments at auction is that if an item hasn't sold in a while, it gives you an idea of where the market might be now. I looked this gal up and she had not sold online. There wasn't a worth point listing that was recent for her. You know, you can get worth point listings that go back years, but does that tell you what the market is today? Sometimes you don't know until you try. So we tried, and she sold and went to a happy collector. The Sasha Brastoff resin bear, this guy was just great. A lot of people don't know he made resin animals. They know that the animals he made in ceramic are worth a bunch of money, and they are. The pair of elephants I sold at the Rose City Vintage Show went for, I think, $250 or $300, somewhere in there. But the resin animals do well too, and this one went on 10 bids for $80. And I just thought the polar bear was great. And this ice blue, well, that's appropriate for a polar bear, right? He went to live up the road with a regular viewer of mine from Evansville, and I'm so happy that she got him because she really is enjoying modernism, and she's also enjoying buying and selling. And I have a feeling that this piece probably had a little bit more room left in it. I think typically these sell a little bit north of $100. But again, we have to bear in mind we're selling on eBay in August, the time of year when people are the most distracted and the farthest away from the computer. So the fact that we had such a good sales record overall and the prices were pretty good, I think we can chalk that up as success, especially this next piece. This piece did really, really well, and I'm very excited because it went back to Camden, Arkansas, where Camark is from. And it went to a gentleman who I believe has the largest collection of Camden pottery in the country, including a lot of the really hard to find metallic glazes. And I believe that I may have even seen some of this collection when I went to Camden, because they had a part of a store that had a section that was just the museum that was not for sale. How this piece ended up being $305 is because there were 16 bids, and a couple of people found out what I found about it doing the research, which was that in 1939, a new artist came to Camark and said, we really need to bring back some of that artware feel. I want to do painted pieces on these molded wares that you're doing. And the molded wares had come about because it was the Depression, and they were trying to make things that have the look of handmade and save money on doing it. So you have this look of hand thrown. There's the Camark pottery tag that looks like the state of Arkansas. And then he did all this hand painting on the bottom. Well, these are really hard to find, and I knew I hadn't seen another one before, but I had this piece for a long time for sale. It was up for sale with me for, I think, 2 or 3 years, but I kept putting in Western stuff because I thought that would make an interesting display. Well, as soon as I got it out on the market where it was really understood, the Camark collectors got it immediately because they realized this is very obscure stuff. You don't see it often. And because, again, this is why sometimes doing things on eBay is great. As an experiment, you find out. I wasn't sure why I hadn't been able to get my $45 asking price in my regular stores as I took this around the country? Well, it's because I didn't identify how special it was until I did the research to put it on eBay. So doing your research is really, really important. Another valuable lesson. And I'm really glad that somebody understood how special this piece was and that it's going to a major collection where it will live with a lot of other really important Camark pieces. This piece went for $37, which was certainly more than I expected. It is the Hyalin ashtray. Hyalin is really well made. Another thing made in the Carolinas that people don't really expect from there, but it is absolutely great modernism. They fired this at a very high temperature, so it's porcelain in terms of its quality. It's very heavy, and what a fun design. So $37 took that one, and a lot of people seem to be interested. Ashtrays are just really collectible now, and it's so many people who never smoked. I get the biggest kick out of that. This little piece went for $24.50, which I think is just about exactly what it should have sold for. It was lots of fun, 1970s, even though it looks more like a 50s piece. This had a 70s Goebel mark. Goebel made Hummels, but they made lots of other stuff, including these two roosters who are, or maybe they're fighting cocks. They are definitely fighting over this sand timer. And I just thought it was neat. Sand timers are definitely a thing that are collectible in and of themselves. It went to a new home for $24.50 plus shipping. I've been putting a lot of Chessie and Peak stuff up because I just happened to keep running into it. And I thought these were great because these are the cards from the Second World War. Let's see if we can get, there we go. There's the box. You can tell Second World War or leading to the Second World War because all of a sudden we're emphasizing red, white, and blue and stars and George Washington. And we are going in a different direction with the advertising because, well, we've got to really, we've got to talk about we are supporting America. The railroads did not want to get confiscated. In the First World War, the government took over all the railroads because it said you can't coordinate between all of you to get the troops and the supplies across the country the way we need. Well, it was not good for the railroads. They really got run down. They didn't do the maintenance. The government was not the best steward of the private business. And when they went back to the railroads in the 20s, there were all sorts of problems. So they were desperate to appear to be supportive of the war so that they could keep their independence during the war. And that's one of the reasons you see this cover. Also important to this is that it had everything. It had the Joker and the bridge card, and it had that for both decks. And that's why when we went to see what the price was, we ended up with $36 on 18 bids, and that's a little bit higher than I expected. Railroad playing cards do sell, but it was really because it was this whole package together. The Hopi figure, now, Koinva is a very well-respected silversmith in the Hopi culture, and best known for that, but he is also an artist, and so to find a piece done by him and be able to put it on the market was really special. It's not a very large piece, it's a plaque, and it's mounted inside of a larger frame to give it a little more oomph, but it really is a fun piece, an interesting piece, and a very significant person in modern Hopi art and culture and design. And so because of that, it went for $66 on 6 bids. These kachina are very popular now that were made in the 1970s, 80s, 90s. The dancers, the figures like this. It seems like a whole lot of people are really getting interested in this culture now. The Francoma piece, this is another thing. I was so glad it went to a viewer and it went for the buy it now price. I tried to do some buy it nows this time because I was in a position to ship things as they sold. And this lovely Francoma piece has such a great style. I just think it's very modern and fun and fresh for 1975. And of course, a lot of people are collecting this era now. There we go. That's Janice Frank's signature. She was the daughter of John and Grace Frank, who started the company. John Frank died in 1973, so this was just the second of the series pieces that Janice had designed. And I think she did a pretty great job. She ran the firm until the 1990s. They didn't really recover from the fire they had in 1983, and I think the molds for these were lost in that fire. So I don't think we have those anymore. The Holt Howard Cozy Kitties. Well, who can resist that? Very cute. Just so sweet. Holt Howard is such great stuff. I hadn't sold any cozy kitties before, so I decided it was time to try. This one, as you see, had a few little rough spots on it, and I did disclose that in the description. And so the buyer was happy to get it, and it also went on to buy it now, one bid for $49. Now, typically these would be more like $65 or $75, but I wanted to price it realistically for condition because it had a few flea bites, and I think it's so important that you consider everything about an item before you put it out there. It's great to say, oh, it looks just like this one that's sold, but if you read the description on WorthPoint and the one that sold was restored, well, maybe yours is better, but if yours has a chip and the one on WorthPoint is perfect, well, the one on WorthPoint is the better piece. So, you know, you really have to take into account what you gave for the piece, what's fair for the condition, what's likely to sell the piece. You know, there's lots of considerations in pricing. It's not just look up a price in a book and say that's how much it's worth like it was in the old days. This piece also went on 2 bids, and that was a little strange because it was supposed to have been a buy it now, and I feel badly that something went awry with eBay. The first bidder put their bid in, the second bidder put a bid in, and the second bidder somehow eBay recognized it as meeting the buy it now price, which should have not been in effect after the first bidder made the bid, and they sold it to the second bidder. The first bidder was nice about it, but I think they were pretty annoyed because they thought they would have a chance to bid up the piece, and they said, you might be annoyed because that might have gone higher. And I would have been annoyed, except it went to a really nice viewer who I like, as well as the first bidder, who was also a really nice viewer who I like. So, you know, unfortunately, you can't always control everything about eBay. There was some sort of a glitch. It did sell for $20, which was the buy it now price, but somehow on the second bid. I don't get it. eBay has its own little weird things sometimes, but it was a really cool tie. I love the old Greek amphora, the way they're designed, and just something different, made of silk, sold at the old Romy Plaza Hotel in Miami Beach, which was such a great fancy place at back in its day. So it's got a nice little heritage, and hopefully someone wears it well. This piece here, Eichholt, I never paid a lot of attention to Eichholt, even though he did great work, because I originally am from the West Coast and we had Orion and Flume and all the Chihuly designers. Well, Eichholt trained in Berkeley, California with a lot of those designers who were getting interested in the revival of Art Nouveau glass and feather pulls and those sorts of things in art glass. But he, when he got done with that, went back to his hometown of Columbus, Ohio, studied more there, and then opened his studio there. Jocelyn at Crazy Lamp Lady is a big fan. She got me interested, and in my research I found, much to my surprise, let's see if we can get his signature up. There we go. 1990. So he was working in 1990, but he actually retired in the early 2000s. And because of that, Eichholt glass is not being made anymore. So it is definitely something to look for, because not only is it pretty and really well made and good art, but it also turns out that it is something that you cannot get new, unlike some of these other designers and studios who are still working. So Eichholt is definitely on my list of folks to look for. This piece sold for $165, buy it now, on the very first bid, and it went immediately. It was the first thing that sold. And then last but not least, this was the last thing that sold, because I did not put a buy it now on this because I really didn't honestly know what to expect. I knew it was Barbini. I knew it was a really well-crafted piece. I knew it was just beautiful, and it had the gold in the neckerchief. Everything you wanted about this piece was there. Plus, it's a cat. People are cat crazy. But I did not know how scarce this cranberry color really was. They had to use real gold to get this cranberry color. Cranberry started to be a popular color in the late 60s, and then especially in the 80s and 90s. But the Italian firms in the late 60s, the glass is beautiful, the pottery is wonderful. The reason we see so much of it in the United States from the late 60s and early 70s is because Italy was not doing well. The lira crashed, and these things suddenly were really cheap for Americans to buy. And so the Italians are trying to produce for the American market, but really you want us to spend money to use gold to make cranberry? that was not high on their list. So they did very little of this. And I think that's the reason the collectors recognized what a great piece it was. It went for $430. And yes, that was more than I was expecting. But I didn't really know what to expect because this piece in this color had not come up before, and this color was so scarce. So I was delighted that it went to somebody who really loved it, and so pleased that it found its level in the marketplace. And so there's the good news. So we get to end on some good news. I just really enjoy doing this with you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to showing you our next 20 items we've been curating to put aside and tell more interesting stories about coming very soon. If you are a level 2 or level 3 member, you'll be getting a notice about that in the community tab because you will get early access to that video. If you are not a member on the level 2 or level 3 level and would like early access to these listings, please go to the memberships listing under the dashed line in any of the descriptions of any of my videos, and you can find out more about memberships there. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.